Hello and welcome to Doodle Club. My goodness, it's March already. Where did that go? And the sun has come out. So how glorious is that? So in today's Doodle Club, I'm going to start a new project for March. So this will be a series of tutorials over the coming weeks. And I've called it An Eye for Beauty. And what I really want to focus on is exploring the ordinary and the mundane and finding wonder and joy and inspiration in that. And I've got my book here. I've got so many ideas that I've been writing down. Anyway, welcome if you are new, and welcome back if you have been with me for ages. My name is Cate Field. I'm an artist, teacher, writer, speaker, passionate about helping you find your creative spirit. And then once you've found it, to develop it further. So in today's Doodle Club, we're going to be finding beauty in the everyday. We're going to be looking at textures and patterns and light, and we're going to do a bit of drawing and a bit of painting. So, are you ready? Let's go. So I'm going to start off by finding my objects, and I've started to kind of put down some ideas. I'm just using a variety of different pencils, and then I kind of just had a bit of a rummage around with the toolbox and thought a peg and a pair of pliers. I'm going to work directly into my sketchbook, and what I'm going to do is to draw. I'm going to start off with the peg and the pliers, and I'm going to do them slightly larger than in real life. Now, I would absolutely encourage you to have the object in front of you, but sometimes light changes and you have to come back to it over time. So take a photograph of it, and then you've got that as well. I'm not going to worry too much about light in this particular one. I'm going to start off using a 3B pencil. It's quite soft. I've started with my outline here. Sometimes I will just work with shadows, but with this one I thought let's start off with the just the outline of this very ordinary peg. So when I teach this class with my students, I get them to just sort of bring in something really boring. It's usually what I say to them. Find something really boring, really dull. And what we're going to do is to make it into something amazing. And when we really start to look at ordinary things, like this peg, because see, actually a peg, it's a really interesting design. It's really clever, isn't it? It's such a clever, simple design. I really like pegs. I did one of my surreal landscapes had pegs in it. Right now I've just sort of moved that a little bit, so I haven't quite got that in the right place. It's fine, it doesn't matter. And when we are kind of putting together ideas for a composition maybe, or just playing around with ideas, when we can look at really ordinary and boring things, something quite magical can happen. And this is what I think is so exciting, when we just take an idea and see what happens. And this is what I'm going to do with this one. I've got my basic shape here. I might have to tweak it a little bit when I'm kind of working out my shadows, which is what I'm going to do next. I'm just going to use the same pencil. I can see that this bit here is very dark. We're just going to go in with the dark bits first. Again, just you can start off quite lightly. I don't tend to use an eraser in my work. I think it damages the paper. And if I make a mistake, then I try and resolve the mistake. Try and find a way around it. Let's just sort of pop that in there. It's slightly moved from my original. So I might have to, I'll just go back to that. But this is going to be part of a composition with the pliers. I just want to show you that you can create something really quite interesting from something very, very ordinary. And I like that that idea. The other thing with this peg, obviously this is a wooden peg, and there's some lovely textures in it, and I'm thinking that I might bring out some of these textures and see if I can get this sort of contrast, sort of bringing that round there. If you haven't ever done an observational study before, don't kind of beat yourself up if it's not going quite how you want it to go. Do some rough sketches first. And again, you know, you don't have to start with an outline. Sometimes it's easier. You know, I will quite often encourage my students not to start with an outline. You know, they'll say, I'll tell them to start with shadows. And what the whole point of an observational study is to train your eye to look. So I'm just sort of putting this edge of the peg here. I'm really just sort of looking at it and seeing what I can make from it. And again, it's in my sketchbook. It's an idea. Just popping that down. So I'm just again using my pencil quite lightly, and then when I think I've got the mark I want, then I'll pop it in. And obviously I've got the shadow on the paper as well. I'm not going to get too bogged down with that one. But yeah, this bit is really interesting. And then what we're going to do is just kind of zoom in on one aspect of our ordinary and boring shape and see what we can do with it, because this is where things can get a little bit surreal. And again, that's something I really love, because our imaginations can then go off on lots of lovely tangents. Again, just very kind of gently putting that together, building it up. I am going to come back to it. This bit's not, see, that's slightly off centre, isn't it, there? That coming around that way, and that coming round this way. This is a working peg. It's been used many times. That's just, again, I can see that needs to be a little bit darker. And yeah, just sort of building that up. I might use different sorts of pencils as well. So I'm just going to leave that for a moment, and I'm going to have a look at these pliers. Now, these pliers got left outside, which is why they've gone a bit rusty, and that side is all nice and shiny. The rusty side, I think, is much, much more interesting. And I did actually take a photograph of these pliers. Again, because I wasn't sure if I was going to have the right sort of light. It just kind of gives a different aspect. I can change things around if I want to. I really want to focus on some of these shapes. I really encourage you to kind of look at things in a completely different way. really kind of study something in a way that you haven't done before. And this is this is where your artwork can become just that little bit more exciting. Now, I quite like this angle here, which means I need to prop it up on something. So I've just sort of propped it up there for the moment. And I thought I would go in with a bit of colour, actually. I've chosen some sort of browns, orange, grey. I'm going to start off with this brown. These are Faber-Castell Polychromos. I'll put a link in the description to all of the materials that I use if you'd like to take a look. So I am just kind of looking at where these sort of rusty bits are. Again, I'm just sort of using the pencil very lightly to begin with. This paper is quite textured. It's actually watercolour paper, and the pad that I'm using. When I'm doing a lot of pencil drawing for for an exhibition or a show or something, then I would tend to use smooth, but I thought I would just pop these into my sketchbook. So this bit here, from the angle that I'm looking at, is actually quite dark. So I'm just going to put in some grey in there, and I might go in with that a little bit later with black. I'm not going to do the whole thing. This is just sort of getting an idea. Again, it's just sort of practicing the techniques, which is what your sketchbook, I think, is for. Your sketchbook is to try out new things, to practice techniques, and kind of have that what if type of thing. So for me, and I encourage all of my students to do this as well, your sketchbook should be quite messy, really. There should be very little finished stuff in it. That's it's very much a thing that you kind of go back to. You think, oh yeah, let's work on that one, or that, I really liked that idea. Let's see what we can do with that, and let's develop that idea a little bit further. And when I kind of teach observational studies, observational drawing, having something in front of you when you're actually drawing it, which is so it's such an important skill to learn. People often get very frustrated because it's not working. It's very much practice. Yep, you could have someone who's hugely talented, but actually it's how much effort you're planning on putting into it, really, and how much you're going to practice and do it. It's that kind of 10,000 hours bit, isn't it? To get really good. And sometimes things will go wrong. Things frequently go wrong, as any of you who watched my tutorial from last week will testify. Yes, lots of things went wrong on that one. I'm just sort of adding a little bit of brown to this. The other thing that's obviously happening is when I'm talking, I'm not concentrating very much, and which is why things went wrong last time. But that's okay. That's fine. I really like coming back to doing some observational stuff. I think it's a good discipline, and it's sort of one of those things that just triggers an idea. It will frequently trigger an idea. I think, yes, actually, I could take that and do something with it. And that could be like in this case, I might take this idea and turn it into something quite surreal. Just sort of, again, putting a little bit more detail into this. Let's just get that other bit of the pliers as it comes down. I'm not a sort of a hyper realist. I'm not that sort of artist. But if you want to do kind of more hyper realistic stuff, then observational studies are crucial. You need to really, really look at your subject. This is slightly moved, so it's not exactly how it was before. But yeah, that's all right. I do like the shape of this. I think it's a very interesting shape here. And I like this bit here. So I just want to emphasize that bit's actually quite dark, as is that bit, and this bit in here. So yeah, I might do a little bit more on that, but you're getting the idea. Let's just sort of move that out of the way now. It's the same with the peg. If you look, if we look at the peg, I've got another peg here actually. There's just so much texture in it and so much detail that I could go into if I wanted to, and you could do the same. So I might come back to those. But what I want to do next is some watercolour sketching, but in the same observational way. So I'm going to be looking at this hammer. I have taken a photograph of it as well. I absolutely love the patterns of this, and I love the shape of the actual hammer. So I'm just going to pop that. Where am I going to put it? I'm going to put it over here so I can see it. And I'm going to go straight in with some watercolour. Now I'm going to be using my Paul Rubens watercolour paints, but you could use whichever colours you like. I'm going to use a soft brush. That's quite a fine brush. I've got a whole kind of selection that I use quite frequently. But again, what I want to really emphasise in this practice is that you don't have to have lots of fancy stuff. You can use what you have. Right, I'm just going to move my paints over here, and I've got my hammer, and with this one I really just want to focus on the head of the hammer and these colours. So I'm not going in with any detail at the moment. I'm just seeing if I can replicate, so I'll put that on there, the colours. So obviously there's orange. I need to activate these paints because I haven't used them today. Let's just make this a little bit wet. Now I'm going to go in with this sort of orange, different shades of orange. And then what I'm going to do is just sort of make the paper a little bit wet. Again, this little painting is going to be probably a little bit bigger than the hammer head. Let's just put in these colours to begin with. Just kind of, oh, I've got a bit of a hair on there. Let's retrieve you. That's not good. That's better. Let's just do that. Again, it's very, very rough shape. It doesn't matter if it's if it goes all over the place. Oh, that's another one there. Oh dear, that's not good. I need to probably change the brush. So I've changed the brush and I've just started to put some little more kind of details. Not very much. It's still very, very messy. Starting to kind of get the shape a little bit more, and I really love this this idea of finding something like a tool and then making it into something actually quite delicate. I think that's quite fun. Yeah, making my own brown, sort of green and orange. I like that combination. Again, I just sort of putting the paint on quite loosely, not very much detail. Just sort of playing, you know, keep kind of looking at it and seeing the bits that I find interesting. Let's just see if we can get a little bit of the head here. Again, I don't want harsh lines in this. This is all going a little bit too green, actually. Let's a bit more onto it like that. That hammer, that end bit. Just get that shape right. There we go. See, it's kind of becoming a little bit hammer shaped, and again, I really want to stress this idea of just trying something and not worrying if it goes wrong. This bit here is darker, so again I'm going to use that green to create this sort of very dark brown. See if we can get that looking quite good. Let's pop that in there like that. Comes around again. If you want to, you can just sort of lift things up with a tissue. Don't worry. I know I say that quite a lot. I think it's because I say that with my students and you lovely people watching. I kind of think of you as my students. Hope you don't mind. There we go. That's right. Again, sort of just building up this idea of the colours, of the texture of this lovely old rusty hammer. So I am going to leave that to dry for a little bit and come back to it. So while I'm leaving that one to dry, I've come back to this one. I'm just putting in some more of the details, perhaps just a little bit more colour, just sort of really looking at those rusty bits and just sort of trying out, seeing what will work. Again, I know I say this a lot, but it's when we try things out, when we are brave, we're kind of brave enough to try something new, that is when the magic happens. I'll just sort of building up a little bit of this. Again, I just wanted to have this kind of essence. I love working with different materials. I like trying out new things, but I also like coming back to the tried and tested bits and pieces, because we have to learn how to draw. It doesn't come naturally, you know, we have to learn it. And I think a lot of people kind of just get really worried, and this kind of, I'm just no good at art, I can't draw. And it is something that practice makes perfect. It really is that. And when people say to me, oh, you know, you're so lucky you can draw, it just kind of makes me laugh, really, because I think it's nothing to do with luck, actually. It's probably to do with thousands of hours of practicing and lots of things going wrong. I am liking this idea. I think I've got an idea for kind of a surrealistic illustration using everyday materials, and I think I'm going to do that maybe later in the week. So this one's dry now. I'm just going to put in a little bit of detail just as we finish this off. And again, I really want to stress the idea that you have to keep practicing. it's one of those things, and I know some people are a little bit reluctant to do that. I'm sure you are not. I'm sure you're thinking, no, Cate, I would definitely practice this. I know I do treat you like you're one of my students in my class. I do feel that you are, actually. Do you see I'm adding a little bit of dark blue to create that shadow. So I've got this, with my hammer, just again, I'm not taking my eyes off it really. It's my reference, because that bit it's very important that that we get that. So I'm using this like Prussian blue to create the shadows. I'm not going to use black. Again, just bringing in a little bit. Use a tissue if you think it's just too much. And you see what happens when you kind of add different colours and different shades. You know, it can get, it just becomes very interesting. I love it. Sort of bringing that like that. I'm just going to do a little bit more on here. But again, like I've said, this is my sketchbook, and things rarely get finished in my sketchbook, but they will be developed. Ideas will come together. Yeah, I'm just using this blue to sort of kind of define some of these edges. Bring that over a little bit like that. Let's just add a bit more brown. So I turn this round, perhaps I should have left it the other way. Here we go. But when we take, just an ordinary object and turn it into something else, there's something a little bit magical about that, I think. So adding brown texture to this bit, because this is the wood. This just needs to be defined a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with that Prussian blue again. I do use black sometimes, but in something like this, I think using dark blue, I would quite often use purple. That can be really good as well. So you could try something out. See, that just gives it that little bit of a lift. And then what I'm going to do is just get a larger brush, just do a little bit of a background, so that it's not just floating in the air. Let's I just want to work a little bit more on this one before we finish. We've got this little kind of a corner. Let's just pop that in just a little bit like that. And then add some water just to break that bit down. As we go. So it's as if there's that shadow coming over that end bit with that bit of the hammer, and then this bit again, just emphasizing that shape just a little bit like that. I've just added a tiny bit more of the blue here, and I've just sort of put in a bit of a background, but you get the idea. Let's just move that out of the way. So there are my ideas for creating something just from the ordinary, and I might do something with them a little bit later. Well, I really hope you enjoyed that and that you've got lots of ideas to take further. And if you want to see some more, you can look at this one and this one. And if you haven't liked and subscribed yet, that would be wonderful. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.